Welcome to the Live Your Dreams podcast, where success leaves clues and someone has your answer. Joined as always, well, my lovely co-host is on sabbatical this week, so she won't be joining us. But before I get started, I do want to help someone. Ladies and gentlemen, Fund and Grow. If you go down to the description link, hit the link. Fund and Grow will give you a free funding training. Fund and Grow. Again, go down to the description link, hit the link. Fund and Grow. Fund and grow your business. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about a good topic. We're talking about Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That's probably one of the best books I've ever read. My mentor would always teach out of Think and Grow Rich. I think a lot of people just like the book because, first and foremost, it teaches on pretty much every single category that it takes to become successful. And I think that's what it is. It's nothing new under the sun, but I think that book actually teaches on every subject. But I always, and I use this story a lot when I'm talking to people. The story, it talks about thoughts are things. And I believe that 100%. Now, it talks about a story. It was the uncle of R.U. Dobby. I think that was the name of him. But no one knows R.U. Dobby, nor no one knows his uncle. And it's a reason why. His uncle actually got the fever and wanted to go into the oil business or the gold business. And he was, striking for gold, right? Or it was oil. But anyway, one of the things that they were doing, they kept going over and over. He bought all the tools, all the equipment. I mean, he did everything that you would think to go into the oil business. So he went out west with all of his tools, all of his equipment. Then he was striking for oil, trying to become rich, right? Trying to be an oil baron, because in those days, everybody was going west to find oil. So he would go and strike, and he would strike, and he would strike, trying to find oil. But one of the things happened after, months and probably years of striking and coming up empty. He did what most people do. He gave up. He said, enough's enough. I tortured myself. I spent all my money. I bought all this equipment, and now look at me. I have nothing. Look at me. It wasn't worth it. Look at me. I have become an ultimate failure, right? And look at the story of this. Now, he sold all of his equipment to someone else. That person did what he should have did in the beginning. He actually went and got someone who studied it and knew it was a fault line right there. He struck another inch, and he had all the oil that he wanted. Now, the good part about that is that it shows a story that you're this close to success. Sometimes it only takes a degree to turn hot water into steam. Only 1 degree, just a little. And it's that one moment when you give up, that one moment where you say, hey, today I'm just going to sleep in. It's that one moment that makes all the difference. If you just push just a little bit more, you're right there to where you need to be successful. All the success you were looking for is right there, just that one step closer. But another thing that Napoleon Hill talks about in the book, and again, if you haven't read it, I'm telling you, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is just an amazing book. But he talks about faith. Also, Dr. Dennis Kimbro has one, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. I read that too. Has a lot of good stories, updated, more stories like with Oprah and Oprah Winfrey and things like that. Where Think and Grow Rich was written way back, where you have stories like Henry Ford and gentlemen like that. But anyway, he tells this story about faith, and I read this, a lot. It said, if you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it is almost certain you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in the world we find success begins with the fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you are outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life battles don't always go to the strongest or fastest man, but sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. And my mentor would drill this into me. I mean, over and over and over again, where I started to believe that. And again, Henry Ford said it, and I don't know if he said it in his book, but it's one of the quotes Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. It's really all in the mind on what you believe, because what you believe is really what, I guess, perpetuates your failure, or it actually thrives you and pushes you towards your success. It's all about what you believe. And again, that goes back to my college. And there's nothing new under the sun. Solomon said that. But my professor said, you're right. It's your philosophy. So that's one of the things you have to think of when you think about being success. And this is Live Your Dreams podcast with Success Leaves Clues. Someone has your answer. One of the things about it is that you have to believe, and it's up to you. No matter where you are in life, there's someone who's been there before. And no matter where you want to go in life, there's someone who's been there before. So one of the things about it, you can learn something from everybody because success leaves clues. So one of the things about it, if you want a certain thing in life, just do what someone who's done it before has done. One of the things when you talk about faith, you talk about persistence, you talk about thoughts are things. When you start talking about that, that's where the success comes from. Right? So we're going to finish back with persistence, but first I just want to take a quick break for the sponsors. Short Child Care, short in name and long in service. Again, Short Child Care is working hard to expand, but at this time there is a waiting list, so put your name on the waiting list. The number is on the screen. Short Child Care, short in name and long in service. All right, Short Child Care. So where I wanted to start back was at persistence. Now, one of the things about it is persistence is what keeps you going. Even sometimes you may not feel like it. It's the persistence that keeps you going. Napoleon Hill has a whole chapter about persistence. Again, if you haven't read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, I advise you to read that book. Also, again, Dennis Kimbro, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, has actually wrote one too. And it's more updated stories with Oprah Winfrey and different individuals. But one of the things he talked about, you could train yourself to be persistent, right? Because sometimes you say, how can you be more persistent? You could train yourself. This is what Napoleon Hill says. And again, my mentor used to say, hey, when I'm pointing that way, I got 4 fingers or 3 fingers pointing back to me. So a lot of times I'm doing this for me more than anyone, because again, I'm constantly trying to improve myself. But persistence, first and foremost, definite of purpose. Knowing what one wants is the first and perhaps the most important step toward the development of persistence. A strong motive forces one to surmount many difficulties. So first and foremost, no matter who you talk to about success, one of the things they always talk about, you have to know what you want. Before you start any journey, you have to know exactly what you want. Not what I want, what you want. To be successful, you have to know what you want. That's step 1. Step 2, desire. It is comparably easy to acquire and to maintain persistent in pursuing the object of intense desire. Next, self-reliance. Belief in one's ability to carry out a plan encourages one to follow the plan through with persistence. Self-reliance can be developed through the principle described in the chapter on auto-suggestion. And again, I remember Tom used to teach on that all the time. Auto-suggestion and biofeedback. Always, what are you telling yourself? Because that's an important part of it. What are you telling yourself, right? It's all about what are you talking to yourself about? Because remember, 99% of communication is with yourself. So you got to be careful. My aunt used to say, be nice to yourself, right? So you have to be nice to yourself when you're talking to yourself. Next, definite lists of plans. Organized plans even though they may be weak and entirely impractical, encourages persistence, right? Organized plans. I'm going to wake up at this time and I'm going to read for 30 minutes. I'm going to wake up this time and I'm going to go to the gym for 30 minutes. I'm going to wake up this time and I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes. I'm going to wake up this time and I'm going to write in my journal for 30 minutes. You have to have organized plans to get you to where you want to go. You have to structure it. You have to have habits in place. All right. Next, accurate knowledge. Knowing the one's plans are sound based upon experience or observation encourages persistence. Guessing instead of knowing destroys persistence. Now, this is one of the things that's very helpful. Now, here's why. Knowing, right, the actual knowledge. Now, sometimes, and I found myself in this predicament, sometimes we'll ask others around us that may not know and give us some information that may not be accurate and may talk us out of it. But sometimes you have to go to the source that has the specialized knowledge, right? So that's one of the things you want to do, and that keeps you persistent. So if you want to invest, you want to ask somebody who specializes in investments, or you want to be studying, right? Everyday investments. So you might not want to ask somebody that may not know anything about investments. You want to get specialized knowledge, right? So next is cooperation, sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tend to develop persistence, right? Having those accountability partners, having those individuals around you that's doing the same thing that you're doing, right? You want that type of cooperation, that mastermind. Napoleon Hill talks about that a lot, having a mastermind group, having others around you that talks the same talk. Also, willpower, the habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon the building of plans for the attainment of a definite purpose leads to persistence. And last, he says habit. Now, this is a big one. Persistence is a direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes a part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Fear, the worst of all enemies, can be effectively cured by forced repetition of acts of courage. Everyone who has seen active service in war knows this, right? Now, that's one of the things I would say out of all of them, habit. And again, my mentor used to always say, if you're going to be the slave of habit, make yourself the slave of the best habits. If I'm going to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I'm going to go to the gym for 30 minutes. If I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I'm going to write my journal for 30 minutes. You have to have those habits in place that get you to where you're going, all right? Now, here's a persistence inventory. Now, here's some of the questions you want to ask yourself. Failure to recognize and to define clearly exactly what you want. You have to know what you want. Procrastination with or without cause, usually backed up with a formidable array of alibis and excuses. Next, lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. Next, indecision, the habit of passing the buck on all occasions instead of facing issues squarely, also backed by alibis. Next, the habit of relying upon alibis instead of creating definite plans for the solution of problems. Next, self-satisfaction. There is but little remedy for this affection and no hope for those who suffer from it. Self-satisfaction. And again, sometimes you may not feel like doing what you want to do, okay? But you still have to do it. You want to get away from the self-satisfaction. Indifference, usually reflected in one's readiness to compromise on all occasions rather than meet opposition and fight it. Next, the habit of blaming others for one's mistakes and accepting unfavorable circumstances as being unavoidable. Next, weakness of desire due to neglect in the choices of motives that impel actions. Next, willingness, even eagerness to quit at the first sign of defeat, based upon one or more of the 6 basic fears. Also, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, he talked about fear, because fear is one of the things you definitely want to. It's nothing to be fearful, but you still got to go through to it. Next, lack of organized plans placed in writing where they may be analyzed. One of the things I've done and really helped me was creating that vision board where I could kind of see the future. Because if you could see it, you could be it. So you want to see the future, put pictures up, because that's how it helps you. All right. Also, the habit of neglecting to move on ideas or to grasp opportunity when it presents itself. I was talking to somebody, the analysis of paralysis, or the paralysis of analysis, something they told me, because I told them I was overthinking something. And they was saying, hey, you can't overthink, you have to act. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is something, again, I'm learning every single day. All right. Wishing instead of willing. Next, the habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches. General absence of ambition to be, to do, and to own. Next, searching for all the shortcuts to riches. Trying to get rich without giving a fair equivalent, usually reflected in the habit of gambling, endeavoring to drive sharp bargains. And last, and this is a good one, fear of criticism. Failure to create plans and to put them into action because of what other people will think, do, or say. This enemy belongs at the head of the list because it generally exists in one's subconscious mind, where its presence is not recognized. And again, Napoleon Hill has a whole chapter talking about fear. So again, I read mine a lot. Mine is beat up. But Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And again, Napoleon Hill had a lot of examples, like, again, with Henry Ford. But Dennis Kimbrough, who worked with, this company that was in partnership with Napoleon Hill, wrote Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. And again, it has more updated stories. And one that, gives to my mind is the Oprah Winfrey story, who came through tremendous obstacles to be where she is. So again, ladies and gentlemen, Think and Grow Rich. It's all thoughts are things. So when you're thinking about that, one of the things I want everybody to think about, thoughts are things. Be careful what you think, right? Because again, they are things. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you get your thoughts under control, right, and you think and grow rich, I'll see you. And yes, I do mean you, living your dreams. Peace.